Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Here's the microphone. I forgot. I have to say this before we do our pre-show. If you ever have to depend on weather.com or local weather reports or the Weather Channel for the weather, you're rolling the dice, because I looked at the weather on Monday for today, and it said, 40 degrees.
Yep, that's what it said here.
40 degrees with about a 6% chance of precipitation. So it's 6 out of 100. And I woke up this morning, and there was 3 inches of snow on my car.
Wow.
So
yeah, we don't have any real accumulation, but it is snowing here. I think it stopped already.
Yeah, and nothing seems to piss off the people at our local car wash place. I'm not sure if Delta Sonic is a nationwide or if it's just a local.
I don't think so, but we have one that does the same thing. If you want to have like a monthly, you can
you have unlimited washes for the month,
right?
And they seem to get really pissed off when people take advantage of that scenario to get the snow off of their car. And that's what I do. If I can get free washes every day, I have snow piled on my car and I don't want it on there, so I go and get washed, and they have to blast all the snow off with the hose, because if you don't do that, then all the snow is going to get clogged up in the inside. So they have to basically hose your car down with warm water. And it's better than me having to brush it off in a snowstorm, so that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be open all year, you got to be ready for that. That's the way I look at it.
So, okay, let's start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
All right, so I'm going to congratulate Coach K for a minute. Don't ask me to pronounce his real last name. We all know him.
Krzyzewski.
Yeah, and he basically had a little speech, sending it to the NCAA, saying, "Hey, look, right now," and he quoted COVID numbers and cases and deaths and everything else. And he goes, I get that the NCAA is plowing through it right now, but when the next 6 weeks are going to be the worst 6 weeks, why in the world shouldn't we relook at this and take a step back? And he's right. We have to remember, if you want to say that about the NFL, they're going to do whatever they do, that's fine. These are grown adults.
Right.
The other are kids. He is coaching kids whose parents have sent them to school, even though they might be part of a program and got a scholarship.
Right.
I think there is still a duty to protect kids. And at the end of the day, I think what he's saying makes sense. There is no harm in pushing something back. Yes. Will the networks not love it? Sure. But at the end of the day, I do think you have to look out for the greater good of your student body.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, you have to realize the motivation here is the NCAA tournament was canceled last year at the beginning of the pandemic. So they desperately need to have that, because that's their money maker for the year. They don't make money on
regular games
in December and January. They make their money on their conference tournaments and on the NCAA tournament. And obviously what you could do, and I've heard this proposed before, I think I'm not sure how many Division I schools there are, but I think it's like 100. It's over 128. They could basically have a tournament where every team in the NCAA that's Division I is in the tournament, and then
that's probably what they should do at this point,
right? And then basically you put them in bubbles and you play down. Now you're gonna lose money in terms of fans in the stands, and I know for a fact that NCAA tournament, they make good money, because I've been to a couple games when they've been in Buffalo. But still, you'd be able to fulfill your contract with CBS, and that would be fine.
Right. I mean, those are your choices, because it's clearly by March not going to be ready for fans, or a lot of fans. Right. So I do think he's got a good point, and I do think they should relook at it. A lot of hockey teams have taken off now for the holidays. Like, Boston University just said, hey, see you after the holidays, meaning see you in the new year. And that's the right thing to do. I mean, again, you might have a schedule, you might have game schedule, but you have to look out for younger kids who are still growing, and we don't know what it's going to do to them. And so, yeah, I thought this is a good move, and I do think the NCAA does need to put on the brakes a little bit. I do.
Well, here's an interesting thing. This weekend, was supposed to be Ohio State and Michigan.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the status is so far, but
I think it's TBD.
Right. The indication yesterday was that the game was going to be canceled because Michigan had so many positives. Now, I don't follow college football, but apparently Michigan's not having a very good year. Ohio State is in the top 5, and the Big Ten came up with a rule that if a team in the conference had not completed 6 games inside the conference, that they were not eligible for the Big Ten tournament or the Big Ten title. Ohio State's 5-0, and this is the last game of in the conference. So
Right.
by the rules that are currently set, they would not qualify for the Big Ten championship because they didn't play enough conference games, but they would be in the top 5. That would eliminate them from being able to make the conference, the college football, their playoff thing.
Right.
Unless the Big Ten changes their rules, they're screwing their own team out of a chance to win a national championship.
Yeah. I mean, again, those kinds of things are going to happen, but if you're the Big Ten, you can change that. I'm pretty sure. I don't see why a lot of things are getting changed on the fly. So I don't see why not. And I'm with Funky. Like, I had heard the name Harbaugh being thrown around for the Jets. I don't want any part of him. None.
What about Bill Cowher?
Hold on. But he's been so woefully bad at Michigan that I don't think just returning to the pros makes him any better.
Yeah, he did do great in San Francisco, though.
Yes, but it doesn't matter. He also had other people around him that may have been the answer. Him on his own, he seems like he's been exposed a bit. So who else were you going to ask about?
Keyshawn Johnson was saying Bill Cowher.
Okay. So for one thing, Keyshawn Johnson is always a source of hot air. I think everybody should know that. He's always been good at that. He's been good at that since he's a player. Yeah. This Boomer Esiason talking to Bill Cowher saying, hey, he's ready to be a coach. Except there's one thing, Boomer. Unless you're chipping in to pay for this coach, the Jets are not going to pay a coach like $6 million, which is something like Bill Cowher would want for the Super Bowls he's won. He wants like $5 or $6 million. The Jets got Adam Gase because he was only making $1 million a year.
Right.
Yes. And so the next one, they're probably willing to pay more, but they're not willing to pay Bill Cowher rate. So again, I don't even look at Bill Cowher as an option unless all of a sudden he says, I'll just do it because I want to do it and I want to get back in the game. That's probably the only way he could be the coach there.
Why do I get the sneaking suspicion that the Jets are going to go for Funky said Doug Peterson after the Eagles fired him.
They won't.
No, he's won a Super Bowl, so that immediately means he'll at least make a couple. Why wouldn't they not go for? They're probably going to go for the hot offensive coordinator.
I don't know if they're going to go for anybody. There's a scenario here. Remember, Adam Gase is the one who fired Greg Williams. Adam Gase has more power than Joe Douglas currently. He does. And so it's going to be up to ownership to fire Adam Gase to give Douglas that power back. Otherwise, Douglas isn't getting a choice here for coach. He's a player personnel guy right now. That he may be a GM, but it's going to be the same as the New York Mets having a GM with Sandy Alderson there. It's the same kind of deal.
If Adam Gase is not fired, I think Trevor Lawrence will go back to school for another year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but again, I'm just saying it's not what I want, but I can't say it's impossible. Look how long Marvin Lewis held on to a job in Cincinnati without playoffs, right? How many years? What do you go, like 9 years without playoffs?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But I'm just saying these weird aberrations happen, and this is the New York Jets we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right. I think the indication that things are close in terms of us getting back to hockey being played and the chatter of January 13th and the 56-game schedule and all that stuff, that it's not hot air, is the fact that we had a signing yesterday and there are some rumors that have popped up.
And Nico Hischier said, bye, Sweden. I'll see you next time. I mean, if that means anything to you.
Was that where he was playing?
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't playing in the SHL then. He must have been playing in a lower.
Right, and he's coming back now.
Okay, yeah, yeah, and some other players have been sneaky, sort of slipping back every couple days here. I know that a couple Leaf players left Finland a couple weeks ago. So, but we'll start with the signing. Philippe Myers, Flyers defenseman, was an RFA without arbitration. They got that deal done yesterday. It was a 3-year deal with a AAV of $2.55 million. Now Myers had a pretty good year last year, had a really good playoff, teamed up with Travis Sanheim. The departure of Niskanen is probably going to make a shakeup on the blue line with the Flyers. The contract was backloaded, as almost every contract is. I think he's making almost $4 million in the last year of that deal. But you saw Myers a lot last year, Russ. I mean, yeah. I don't think this is a bad price for 3 years for a defenseman.
Oh, actually, so Vince was saying he sure wasn't playing anywhere. He was just in Switzerland at home. Okay, I thought they had sent him. I remember them talking about sending him somewhere, but I guess he never was. It's hard to keep track. Right. Anyhow, yeah, this is a good signing. I can't tell you though that they're getting this price for a top pairing defenseman. I can't tell you that. He might get a look-see as a top pairing defenseman, but I can't tell you that all of a sudden this is like the biggest bargain on earth because he's a top pairing defenseman. I think he's a top 4 defenseman. I think he's more likely a 3 or a 4, but I do think this is a good signing because you did get him at a reasonable rate. He has showed you he could play at the NHL level. He definitely has an upside to him, especially offensively. He's strong. He still has an issue with decision-making. And the loss of Matt Niskanen is really big, and they haven't really plugged it. Just moving him up could solve the problem, but you're rolling the dice on that. It's literally 50-50, and otherwise you're just going to try guys out in the organization. But I still think the Flyers are going to sign somebody or bring in a PTO or something for a 1-year guy that they think they could plug in there, like when the Leafs did with Hainsey. I just feel that that's going to be the case, but it's going to come down to the wire because of the way things are going here. I do want to mention, so apparently yesterday ESPN put out a list of divisions and left the Flyers off as if they weren't in hockey anymore. Now, look, we all make mistakes, right? Misspellings. You go on a show, you say the wrong thing, you're like, I did screw that up. Right. Whatever. But this is pretty simple. All you have to do is count up the amount of teams, which is what I always do if I do a preview, just to make sure I didn't leave out a team. Right. You, ESPN, you left a team off.
Yeah,
come on.
They had their East Division with 7 teams, and only one division has 7 teams.
Right.
It's the Canadian.
And I get it. This is probably not a hockey person who did it. I get it. But you still have to look on a page and add up the amount of teams.
Yes.
Now, we're asking ESPN. We're asking for the most basic of coverage out of you now because nobody really goes to you for hockey anyhow. Right. But if we did, we would want that as the most basic of coverage. And look, they have some good writers. But unfortunately, it gets lost in all the ESPN noise.
Yeah, but after the cuts right now, I think they have like Greg Wyshynski and Emily Kaplan, and that's about it. I mean, their hockey staff is not too big right now.
No, I know, but I think they're good writers. It's just
they're great writers.
But again, it's a problem because it gets mixed in with all the other stuff.
Now, Myers had 16 points in 50 games, 3 goals in the playoffs. He's not an offensive defenseman. He's not, but
he has an offensive side.
Yeah, right.
But he's not a super duper offensive defenseman.
No, I mean, I think he's probably a 25-point defenseman, which
he can go a little higher. I think he can go like 30, 35. I do. Right.
Which is, that's not anything to sneeze at, but the fact is he's right-handed. He's 6'5", 210. He's not overly tough, but I think he uses his size to his advantage.
I think he'll get tougher, though. I've seen a little turn on the corner there, but you're right.
But, I mean, the thing is, like I said, for a right-handed defenseman, a big right-handed defenseman who could improve or who could take a step up with his toughness, getting him at $2.5 million for 3 years, and then he's not arbitration eligible after the 3 years, so he's got a year until he's an unrestricted free agent. that's a pretty good deal for Chuck Fletcher. So
it is.
I think that was good. That was good work there. And we'll talk about like free agents who might be in line for PTOs or contracts. We're not going to play our game, but we're just going to look at what is still left out there. And I think depending on what the NHL does in terms of taxi squads and expanded rosters,
that's going to be a big key as to what happens.
Big key. There, teams that normally would say, okay, we're up against it. Well, if the rules say you can add a couple players, and you don't want to call up youngsters who you want to say play in the American Hockey League, you might be willing to have a veteran sitting around like James Patrick with the Sabres back in the day. He was the 7th defenseman, and he was okay sitting around. Then somebody got injured. He stepped in on the bottom pairing. He was there as a sort of a safety valve. I think that depending on what the NHL does, you're going to have teams maybe go out and sign a guy if it doesn't have to count against the cap. But we'll talk about that.
There's only so many players to go around, though, and I think what we should talk about is one of these two leagues is either going to run severely diminished or not run at all between the ECHL and the AHL. I think it's a battle of that right now because I don't think there's going to be enough players in certain organizations to have full squads there.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a problem. And we saw a bunch of ECHL ones drop out.
Yep.
And you were talking about a Canadian division in that.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention. Yeah. Right now. I mean, obviously, we know from what we've heard over the last month or so that, in all likelihood, and Gary Bettman said something yesterday in an interview that more than likely it's going to be a 7-team Canadian division because of the border. Well, nobody thought about the ramifications that would have with the American Hockey League, and there are 4 Canadian AHL franchises: Manitoba, which plays in the MTS Center where the Jets play. The Marlies, who play at what used to be Ricoh Coliseum, now Coca-Cola Coliseum. Laval, which is outside of Montreal. And Belleville is the Senators team.
Right.
Okay, they're not going to be able to cross the border and play Rochester and Syracuse and Utica as they normally would. So they're talking about, and I don't know what the length of the AHL season is going to be. I would assume it's probably going to be 40 to 50 games like the NHL.
Yeah, I think that's all you're talking about.
They're talking about having a 4-team Canadian division in the AHL. So that means the Marlies will play Laval, Belleville, and Manitoba, 12, 13 times.
Yeah, they're going to really hate each other at the end.
It's absolutely insane. And, like I said yesterday, I was chatting with somebody regarding the Canadian division, how the way it balances out to 56 games, it's going to be 10 games against 2 teams and 9 games against the other 4. And I said, this is going to be like the Adams, Smythe, Norris, and Patrick divisions because they played inside their own division that many games. And the person that I was chatting with said, yeah, these teams will absolutely hate each other at the end. And then Ray Ferraro was talking on the radio yesterday, and he says, yeah, the one year we played the Canadians 8 times, and then we played them in a 7-game series in the second round. So we played them 15 times in a year. And after playing Claude Lemieux and Brian Scrudland and Mike McPhee 15 times, he wanted to kill them because and Chelios.
The only thing that's going to keep these 2 leagues going, or at least one of these 2 leagues going, is the payment that we're hearing about now. Of course, teams do give a payment anyhow normally, but the NHL is now talking about making their up because they also give a payment each year to these leagues. But now we're talking about a much higher number. I don't think it'll be the $30 million like the NBA did, but they're going to have to do something because otherwise one of those 2 leagues is not going to be able to run without fans.
Right. Well, I mean, the American Hockey League for sure is not going to be able to play without fans, but they're not going to get fans early on. And the parent teams may funnel money to them. But Brian Burke basically on the Hockey Central show today said what I said yesterday when we were talking about the fact that all of a sudden the NHL just said, okay, we're going to stick with the CBA the way it was. Essentially what he said is eventually the owners are going to get their 50-50 breakdown, because if it's less than 30% in terms of the haircut that the players are taking in terms of deferment and escrow, if the deficit this year because of no fans and because of advertising agreements and things of that nature is more than 30%, which is what they're expecting, then there's going to be a deficit that the players are going to owe the owners, and they're maxed out in how much they're getting from the players in terms of a break. So eventually, in terms of either hockey-related revenue being paid back by them artificially keeping the cap down, the owners are going to get their money because it's contractually obligated in this CBA. So eventually they're going to get it. Apparently the PA has been saying is, we'll let people 5 or 6 years down the road pay for it and not right now. So it's like the veterans basically saying, let the kids pay for it. We're not going to.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's what's going to happen. I do think you just need to play at this point. Our initial gut feeling was 60, then we went down to 48. Now there's a thought of 56. Like we just don't know. We don't.
Yeah, no.
If it happens after this call today and everything starts aligning, then I do think 56 is a possible number. And if you get 56, that's a pretty good number. I think for fans, for competitive reasons, for that Canadian division to really hash itself out. Because if it's 48 in that Canadian division, you might have gotten a loopy result with the team. You might even have gotten a hot Ottawa, make some damage there. But I think if you have to go 56 now, that makes it a little more challenging. So I'm hoping for that number.
56, the only imbalance would be in the Canadian division because it's 7 teams. If it's 56 in the American divisions, it's 8 games, 4 home, 4 away, and that would mean basically if they're going to double up on these series, it could mean 2 trips to Buffalo for the Bruins and all the other teams in that East division. Or even one, they just play the 4 games in a row, and that they save on travel that way. They haven't said whether they wanted just to do like 2 games in a row or 4, or I'm not sure. They're basically going with the baseball model. So you would think that they would, if they really want to limit travel and limit costs, then it would be 1 flight to one place, and you play the 4 games in a row over, say, a week.
Yeah, they're not going to do it that way. I don't think
they will, because I think the ratings would tank, because if you see Buffalo, Boston, 2 games in a row, that's fine, because we see back-to-backs. Or
you do need a little time in between to build up storylines and everything else.
Exactly.
And by the way, the longer you stall, the better chance you have of getting maybe some fans that last month before the playoffs. There is always a chance of that. I think it's a long shot, but
I'll tell you who I think is going to have a really big advantage in this current setup, and that's the New York teams. Because if you think about it, 56 games, that means they're going to play, say if you're the Rangers, you're going to play 24 games within a bus ride. New Jersey, the Islanders, and Philadelphia. So you're not going to be flying. And if there's days in between, you could actually return home and then drive in the day of. So they're not going to, whereas like the teams in the Canadian division, Montreal and Ottawa are fairly short flights, but you're going to probably make multiple trips to Winnipeg, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. So the travel for that East division, other than say Buffalo and Washington, depending on how they set this up, it's going to be a big advantage for those New York teams.
It is, but it could become a train league too, because like if you're in New York, New Jersey, Philly, and you're going to Washington, you could take the train. Same with, for all that, you could just do 1 return ticket because you're not staying in that city. Right. So they may do that. I actually think this could be an advantage for Henrik Lundqvist, because now you're saying with an older goalie, he's going to be able to get back home. He is not going to have to go through crazy travel. And he's going to, be playing a lot of the teams that he already knows. That could be a big edge for a guy like that in a new environment. So that's something.
I think what also may be an advantage for veteran goaltenders is the fact that if they're playing this schedule of a series, like with 2 games on back-to-back nights, say they play Friday, Saturday, Washington plays Philadelphia. There's no way that they're going to play Lundqvist in both of those games.
Right.
So it's going to be Lundqvist and it's going to be Samsonov.
Yeah.
So the older goalies are not going to be expected. I mean, say if you take a percentage of a goalie plays 60 games on an 82-game schedule, which is 3/4 of the season. If it's 56, then they would play. Let's see, 28. They would play 49. No, it would be 14. 42. Yeah. So I don't think there are going to be many goaltenders that are going to play 42 games. I agree.
There won't be. And if they happen to do a lot of training, taking the train, then it makes for better card games because you have longer to play. You don't have as long to play on these flights, but there's a lot of stories that I was told over the years, like from the Rangers' perspective, of guys playing cards in the back of the train. And I imagine that would be a big thing again if that happens, because you got a little extra time to kill. Why not?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about what Ack wrote about yesterday that really expanded over the last 24 hours, and that was the rumors regarding the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, this is the situation right now. Vegas is over the cap. I'm looking up on Cap Friendly right now to see how over the cap they are, but it's significant, and this is after, obviously, the signing of Alex Pietrangelo. They're at 82.4 and the cap is 81.5. So they're over the cap by less than $1 million, but they really have no flexibility. And the main reason is because they're spending $12 million on their goaltending, with Fleury at 7 and the re-signed Robin Lehner at 5. But contributing to that also was the signing of Alex Pietrangelo. And I said this to you yesterday, Russ. If you look at the problems that they're in, and we'll talk about the rumors in a second, but if you look at the problems that they're in, and I was saying this with the Leafs, I was an advocate of the Leafs going out and acquiring Pietrangelo, but the only way it made sense for the Leafs to do it is to clear the space by trading William Nylander, because Nylander made a little under 7, and Pietrangelo in Toronto probably would have been around what he's making, maybe a little more, probably around $9 million. So you could pay for most of it with Nylander by moving Nylander out. Okay. What Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee did is they didn't pay Pietrangelo with the money vacated by Fleury because they couldn't move Fleury's contract. They traded Nate Schmidt and basically gave Nate Schmidt away. Nate Schmidt was making 5.4, I think it was, something in that area. I think it was definitely under $6 million. I'm looking it up right now. Maybe it's 5.9. It was 5.95, so barely under $6 million.
I gotta tell you, I just want to stop you for one sec.
Yep.
I don't know why, but just to my right, I've already seen the names of Jeff Finger and Patrick Stefan in the chat room. I don't know what's going on there. Go ahead.
Yeah, they must be bored with me talking. So Schmidt is making a little under 6. They signed Pietrangelo for 8.8, so that's $2.8 million. Now that's not a big amount, but when Fleury is making 7, and you're signing a guy for 8.8. That's $1 million. That's the $1 million that they're over right now. They should never sign Pietrangelo unless they could have traded Fleury, and they couldn't trade Fleury, so they shouldn't have been in on this. Now we're hearing, and it was a number of people, Frank Cervelli from TSN, David Pagnotta, another couple of people were mentioning not only Pacioretty, but Jonathan Marchessault and Fleury being on the block. Marchessault is making $5 million for 4 more years.
Yeah, he's reached his level of, he's just a really good player for that money. Like, he's reached that level. They paid him top of the scale for him. Yeah,
and I mean he had a decent year last year. He had 22 goals, 47 points in 6.
But that's him. That's what he's going to be.
Yeah, he's a 55 to 60 point winger / center. He can't really play center, but
no.
He in the past he had, but he's not really a center. But okay, so he's making $5 million for 4 more years. Pacioretty is making $7 million for 3 more years, and this is a guy they traded Suzuki and they traded Tatar for. and then signed to a contract. Last year, he had 32 goals. No, excuse me. Yeah, 32 goals in 71 games, which is a very good year. So, I mean, he's still a very effective forward, but right now they're in a situation where they need to have some flexibility, and I don't know where they get it.
Well, I think honestly, I think they bungled the Fleury situation because he's not in demand. He is coming off not his best year. He's older. He's making too much money in this market when teams don't have a lot of money. So nobody is going to call you and bail you out of Marc-Andre Fleury. Matter of fact, they're going to do the opposite now. Yeah. And they're all going to say, no, we're set at goalie. We're good. And then maybe they're going to call you two times more. The Vegas Knights will call you and say, hey, we'll do this so you could take Fleury. Because that's what it's going to turn into. He is not in demand. Pacioretty is not going to get traded right now unless somebody is trading equal value or they're going to gain $1 million on it and get a lesser player who's being overpaid somewhere. That trade's never going to happen. And he has no trade or no move or something, I'm pretty sure.
Fleury?
No, Pacioretty.
Pacioretty has a modified no trade.
Right. So we don't even know what his list is yet. Yeah. So that makes it harder to trade him.
Right.
They're in trouble. And they should never have done that deal. And like you said, until they had more cap certainty, we can't blame this on COVID because everybody knew coming into this free agency season that there were going to still be problems this year with the NHL as to attendance and cap and everything else. So none of this should be a big surprise. They're a team now that is going to end up dumping another player, and it may not even be any of the ones you named. It may just be moving a player out. Like they may just have to move another player out and take a draft pick back.
It could be somebody like Alex Tuck, who's 24, and he's making less than $5 million. He's a big power forward.
And you'll get a player for Tuck, but then you have to kind of match up a lesser salary. That's all.
Right. I mean, well, see, this is the thing. It's like, and I was thinking about this in terms of Fleury, and more than likely, if I thought about it, then I'm sure McCrimmon and other GMs have thought about this. If they're looking to save money on Fleury, on Fleury by moving Fleury, they're probably not going to be able to save $7 million. Right?
No
to trading. I mean, remember the Leafs traded Patrick Marleau along with a first-round pick, and Marleau was 6.25. But the reason that Carolina did it is because they were going to buy out Marleau. Now Marleau, because he was a 35 and over contract, they took the full cap hit. So the going rate to take a contract like Fleury on is at least a first-round pick, and he's more than a year. It's 2 years.
Right.
Now you could say, and it might be possible that Vegas trade Fleury to a place like Carolina, take back a Reimer or a Mrazek, who are making about half of what Fleury is, throw in the first round pick, and you've got cap relief in the 3.35 range, and that
why hasn't Don Waddell done that already?
Right, exactly. And now the thing is that what Don Waddell is probably under the situation is that Dundon doesn't want to spend $7 million on a 37 or 38-year-old goaltender next year when he's got 2 expiring contracts.
I'll give you a perfect deal too, but I also think that team does not want to spend any more money. You could trade him to Columbus with a first and get Korpisalo back, and everybody would be happy. But the problem is, figuring the cap is going to be the same next year, Columbus isn't going to spend to the cap either.
Right, and if they're going to spend money right now, they're going to spend money on Dubois, who hasn't been signed yet.
Correct. And that's the problem you're going to have with a lot of teams.
And that's the thing right now. What we're going to see over the next, I would say, week to 10 days, based on if the board of governors and the PA executive board vote approval to the start the season, because what they're going to approve is, protocols to play, things of that nature, the schedule, what the particulars, they're not going to go into bubbles, at least not unless that's the last option, but that's what's going to be voted on. But once that's done, you're probably going to see a slew of restricted free agents sign.
I'm going to give you a scenario now, which would, if it happened, would make me laugh. What if the Knights barely get out of cap situation and couldn't move any of those guys? We find out at the end of this season that the cap will be the same next season, and George McPhee now has to do the opposite of what he used to do and trade Fleury and Alex Tuck just to get the Seattle to take those guys, to take Fleury.
Oh, well, they're not part of
that. Could happen.
Yes, no, but the funny thing is, and Vegas would like to be part of it, but apparently they're not part of the expansion draft. They're not.
Oh, they're not.
No,
I didn't know that.
No, they don't have to. They don't have to give up a player.
Oh, I didn't know that because see, that's weird though. Like you're a team in the league at this point,
right? But they're an expansion team. So
I know, but so an expansion team could win a Stanley Cup, but you don't have to give up a player in the expansion draft. That's crazy.
Well, I guess what they're saying is that the depth of the organization isn't firmly established because they've only been in existence for 3 years. But yeah, if you ask George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, they'd want to be part of this expansion draft.
I think they would, yes.
Yeah, so they may have to trade because I just looked at
they still can make a trade with Seattle.
Oh yeah. They could give Seattle a second-round pick to take somebody.
Right, and they might do that.
Which would be ironic because that's what Florida and Minnesota.
They may lose some of their. Yeah, I think it could happen.
So the restricted free agents, like I said, Myers signed yesterday.
Right.
You will probably see these names, I would say, click off within the next week to 10 days. And we talked about this earlier. But Casey Middlestat with the Sabres. It's probably not going to. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but maybe it's a dispute over the fact that whether Middlestat is going to be playing in the American League or he's going to get an opportunity to play at the NHL level. He started to play well in the AHL before the pause, but there was definitely like a want for a reset there because he just didn't play very well over 2 seasons. But Dubois, Roslovic, Matt Barzal still has not been signed. Dylan Strome. Let's see here. Shillington with Calgary. He's probably going to be in the top 6. Cirelli, obviously. Vince Dunn with St. Louis. Eric Cernak and Mackenzie Blackwood. I think
all of them will get signed easily, except for Barzal, because now that the Islanders have extra money, you would have thought this signing would have been done, but now, since it's still dragged on for 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Something tells me that he's wanting more than what the Islanders still want to give him.
And tying in what you had said in our little chat about.
Yeah, like Thomas says, Barzal will sign. Yes, he will sign, but he may end up signing a bridge deal, which would be bad.
Right, especially when they have the cap space to sign him to a long-term extension.
Right.
Remember, he's 4 years away from being an unrestricted free agent. So if you sign him to a 6-year deal, you're buying out 2 unrestricted years. Right. They're not going to give you those years in terms of, on a bargain. They're going to want to be paid at a level that they would get in unrestricted free agency if they were hitting the market after year 7. So he's probably in those years wanting to get paid $10.5 million, and Lou doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, so I could see Barzal coming in on a bridge, and then this time I'm going to use it correctly. They're going to sign Matt Martin, and because I said Matt Martin yesterday,
and Corey Schneider and Andy Green,
both of those guys. I could see that happening. And if I'm an Islander fan, that is not what I want. Don't be happy to just see Barzal return on a bridge because the future looks murkier if you do that.
Yeah, I think the 2 touchstones of that list are Cirelli and Barzal, because Cirelli obviously he
has to wait.
Yeah, Cirelli has to wait, and like I said, I could be wrong because Cirelli should be paid. He should get the long-term deal, but they just simply can't right now. And it might be, like I said, a Kevin LeBanc situation where Brisebois goes to him and says, I got you. I'll give you this contract. It's in my drawer. You're getting it next year, but I can't pay you that right now. So I'll pay you $1 million this year and then give you a slight overpayment going down the road.
Right. Now, Thomas says, hey, they could save $1 million by sending Ladd to Bridgeport.
Right.
I'm not sure it's $1 million.
Yeah, 1.025 million.
No matter what, no matter how many games.
Yeah, if they send him down, if they put him on waivers and send him down to the American Hockey League, the limit in terms of burying a contract is a little over $1 million.
Okay, so it doesn't matter how many games if it's not a full season or anything like that.
No, unless the NHL is changing their.
I need to look at that because or if there's going to be a change this year, because you think they would have done it already, but clearly the AHL is not going to have a full season, so maybe the NHL is not going to give them a full $1 million.
And if depending on
half the amount, right? They may only get $500,000.
Well, possibly, but depending on what, if they're going to prorate, they're not going to prorate the salary, so I can't imagine that they're going to prorate the discounts. So, I mean, what I'm saying? It's like they're not prorating okay, sir, for example, a player is getting $1 million, but he's not getting $1 million because of retention, because of deferment, and because of escrow. But against the cap, it counts as $1 million.
Why not do it already? Why are they waiting?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the next thing to be announced. But I mean,
that's what I'm saying. There may be something that we don't know yet.
Yeah. What also could happen is if they have this taxi squad, and what they're saying is the taxi squad might be paid at American League money.
Yeah, then they can put him on that. They
may not send him down to Bridgeport.
Right.
He may, he's one of the taxi squad, so he's making a prorated amount of, $4.5 million, and they take $1 million off the cap, but he doesn't get sent down. He doesn't get put on waivers. That's another thing. We don't know what the rules of waivers are going to be right now. We
don't know what rules of waivers are, and honestly, not to say cap friendly could be wrong, but like right now they've got the Islanders with about $4 million in cap space. But they could end up having less if we don't know how they're going to determine. Again, the cap number changes like daily, right?
Right.
We don't know if they're going to have like a different cap rate this year based on the fact that they're not having a full season.
Well, I mean, the one thing about cap friendly right now, they have Boychuk listed as injured reserve. He's going to be on LTIR.
Okay, so he'll be on LTIR. So that's the other money. Because I was like, why isn't this right?
But the only way that they get the full $6 million is if they go right up to the cap. Like if they go right up to 81.5, and then they put Boychuk on LTIR, and then they get the full $6 million. If they say they sign those three guys for $700,000 a year, so that's $2.1 million. And right now they have a little under $4 in terms of cap space. So 2.1 million, subtract that, it's like $1.9 million. They would only get $4 million in cap relief from Boychuk because they were still $1.9 million under the cap. That's what the Leafs do. That's what other teams do when it comes to LTIR. They have to push you right to the edge so they get the full discount of LTIR. So,
now this could be an issue. So according to Forbes, the Islanders lost the most money, $39 million this last season.
Right.
They're still valued 16th in the league, but they lost the most money. Ledecky may have to be convinced to spend to the cap, like you were talking about, to get the full amount of the Boychuk thing. Otherwise, then you're definitely seeing Barzal coming in on a bridge deal.
And then, the ownership of the Islanders may want him on a bridge deal for one simple reason. By the time the bridge deal is over with, they'll be in the new building with the revenue from the new building, and they won't.
You're still hoping he doesn't want to be a free agent, you're hoping.
Right. This could be John Tavares part 2, and I know my friends who are Islander fans, and I really don't have any. Joe Morello, wherever he is now, but you're going down the same road. You're alienating this guy by not paying him what he's worth.
Yeah, I think with the amount of money they lost, it's going to be a tough sell to get them to spend too fully to the cap.
I mean, with Tavares, remember, it was as much organizational incompetence and instability based on the building and what was going on with the organization, the general manager, the ownership. It was all those were contributing factors to him leaving. Well, now the ownership is a little more solidified. You've got Lou there. You've got Barry Trotz there. It's a lot calmer of a situation. But if you don't pay the guy, the guy's going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, basically they have until Christmas probably to sign him to a long-term deal. Otherwise, he's coming in our bridge. And then depending on how much they're going to save and spend, maybe Green and Martin and Snyder don't all get signed.
Yeah. Now, okay, here's a list of, and these were, I'm taking from Cap Friendly here. We'll just go over, like, say, the top 20 list here of player, and we're not going to say, whether, we're just going to say, will they be in a camp when camps open? I think it's going to be after New Year's. It's probably a 2-week camp, and then the season starts January 13th. Corey Schneider, we just said he's probably going to get signed to a 1-year deal by New Jersey. Michael Granlund, we've heard his name be out there in terms of rumors. I think he's going to get a contract from somebody. Same with Mike Hoffman, Andy Green, Sammy Vatanen. I think he's going to get a multi-year deal, but maybe he wants a 1-year deal because he wants to go out in a more normal free agent market.
I don't know if he wants a 1-year deal. He was already low paid with the Devils. I don't know. I mean, when's the last time he's made good money?
Well, he made his last contract. I mean, I know it was split up after by New Jersey to retain salary to move him, but he was making over $4 from Anaheim when he got traded to the Devils.
If he's going to sign 1 year, he wants more than $4.
Right.
That's going to be too much for some teams.
Because he's the best defenseman on this market.
Right. But that's going to be too much for some teams. Don't you agree? Like,
yeah. I don't think there are many teams out there that can afford him. And the teams that can afford him are teams that are not, probably contending for a playoff spot like Detroit and Ottawa and New Jersey. Esmir in the chat was saying, would he go back to Europe? No,
I don't.
He's going to make more money here, even if he gets a 1-year deal.
Right. He'll take a 1-year deal if he has to, but I think he's probably holding out hope for a 2-year deal. And maybe that'll be from a team that does one of these roster moves once they know about the season and everything else. And maybe they figure out the rules of this season, because I think we're all just assuming that everything they signed in that CBA is what there is, but they could be negotiating slight changes right now. And so I think that is what's holding everything up.
And if, say, for example, we're right in the sense that these expanded rosters that say it's 3 players, a forward, a defenseman, and a goaltender that'll be on a taxi squad, and that they don't count against the cap. So, okay, that means that you could slip a $1 million defenseman, who's your 7th guy, onto the taxi squad, and that opens up $1 million on the cap. So
and then maybe you can get Vatanen.
And then maybe you can get Vatanen or somebody else to take.
Tampa would like to do that just to be equal on the cap.
Right. I mean, exactly.
That's the other thing. I mean, let's talk about that for just a second here. We're not in the summer, but I would have to imagine a week after they announce when the season's starting, the summer cap is over, and Tampa's going to have to do something, right? I mean, they're not going to be able to stay over for much longer.
Well, as it was last year, the season started on Wednesday. I think they had to be cap compliant on the Monday before the season.
Right, but that was also like an emergency situation, the way that season was. Do you really think they're going to let them? Because normally in a normal season, you don't get that long. I think you.
No. What I'm saying is I think they won't have to be cap compliant until, say, January 11th.
Okay, if you think they'll let them run that long, okay.
Well, they
might. You might be right.
Yeah. I think they sort of have to, because teams are going to be scrambling. Okay, let's see here. Well, Craig Anderson is interesting because I don't know if he goes to a training camp as on a PTO.
He won't do it. I don't think it's worth it for him.
Yeah, especially with, and I have to bring this up. His wife is recovering from cancer.
Right.
He, somebody with pre-existing conditions, he may not want to continue his career simply because he might not be able, if God forbid somebody on his team gets COVID and he gets COVID, that he'd be exposing his wife and she'd be more more of a vulnerable situation. So I think he may be done. He may be a COVID casualty because of that.
He could be.
Carl Soderberg, I think somebody will invite him. He had too good of a year. He had 17 goals last year, but I'm not sure exactly where
I do think he gets looked at as being soft, though. Now, somebody will invite him in, but I don't know if he's getting a contract.
Right, and he according to this, he has not played anywhere in Europe, so he's been, I think if he was playing in a lower division in Sweden or playing in Switzerland, and stepping in fully in shape and fully up to speed, that probably would have been attractive to some other teams, but he isn't. So he must be waiting around here for a 1-year contract. Carl Alster.
I don't know if anybody wants him.
Yeah, I mean,
the only chance he has is being signed as an extra player, like to the taxi squad.
I was going to say, could you see Washington signing him on a 1?
Yeah, because again, if they're going to try and plow through some of the worst parts of COVID, then you might need a Carl Osner on the taxi squad to call up for a certain amount of games.
Michael Frolik, I think Eck mentioned his name with a couple teams. I think he'll at least get a PTO offer. Jonathan
I know you don't like the name. Has Alan Walsh ever let one of his guys on a PTO? I don't know.
I don't know, but if the availability of his players was reflective of the personality of the agent, they would never ever get a job. Jonathan Erickson, I think, is done. I'm pretty sure that
he was playing on one leg.
Yeah, I think he only played 18 games last year. I think he's got a job with the Red Wings in their scouting department. I remember hearing something about that. Maybe that was Nicholas Kronwall, but I know that he was a UFA. So
I'm going to say to Cam, I'll answer the question you're asking of me at the end of the show.
Okay, Justin Abdelkader. I think somebody will give him a PTO, but 33 slowing down, and based on the fact that he only had 3 assists in 49 games.
Oh, that's right. Funky's right. That was Cronwall with the one leg, but Erickson is old.
Right. But and Funky, am I right that it was Cronwall who got a job in the Wings organization as something in their scouting department or something in like an assistant to the general manager? Because I'm pretty sure he did, but I wasn't sure about Erickson. Abdelkader might get an invitation from somebody, but I don't know if there's enough there. Jimmy Howard.
I don't think there's enough there with Abdelkader. Jimmy Howard. I think Jimmy Howard is going to have to wait to see if there's injuries, or if a team feels like they need a third because all of a sudden one of their guys bows out because of COVID, or bows out because they don't want to play this season because of COVID. Because I do think, if you think about it, the position most likely to bow out because of COVID are probably goalies, because there's not enough goalie jobs to go around.
Right, but what might be going on here is if teams are able to carry 3 goalies. And like, for example, if this taxi squad situation happens and it's 1 forward, 1 defenseman, 1 goaltender. Okay, say if, for example, a team like the Leafs, they'll carry Anderson and Campbell as their 2, and then Aaron Dell would be their 3rd on the taxi squad. Now, we don't know what the rules are going to be in terms of these players being made available. Like, can they be called up? Do they have to go through waivers?
Might only be able to call them up for a period of time. Like, we just don't know.
Now, that could be, it could be like Major League Baseball, where they give them an extra reliever for the double header.
Right.
Where if there's 3 games in 3 nights, then
you get a player for that road trip or that game, and then they go back.
Because in a 3-game series, if you're playing a 3-game series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Toronto's in Vancouver, and you're playing, and you play them 9 times, and you have to play a 3-game series, and you're playing 3 games Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, you could play Freddie Anderson in games 1 and 3, but it's possible you'd play Anderson, Campbell, and Dell. So,
right. And I'm going to give you an example where I'm not sure Howard will be a taxi guy. Again, let's say one of the 2 leagues, ECHL, AHL, doesn't go. You're going to have 3 goalies there that you're trying to find some sort of work for. And are you going to sign another goalie and say to one of your goalies in your organization, they're just going to have to sit this year because of Jimmy Howard? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I'll just read off a bunch of names here that guys who I think will get invited or signed. Hamonic, definitely.
Yeah, he's getting signed. He'll get signed quickly, I think.
Yeah,
and it's going to be out west probably. That's probably the thing about it.
Yeah, Vancouver could make sense.
Seems the likely spot for him.
Yeah, Hainsey possibly. He's 39 though.
I'm not sure about Hainsey yet.
Grabner.
Grabner will get signed by somebody cheaply.
Connor Sheary. I can see Pittsburgh.
Sheary's going to get signed.
Athanasiou.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Halla.
See, Athanasiou, even though he has talent, because he burned some bridges previously and then didn't back it up with the offense, he could find himself on the outside of the league this year. It wouldn't shock me.
He might have to wait until there's an injury and then somebody needs somebody. Halla, Colin Wilson.
Halla will get a job. Wilson's another one. He may have reached his expiration point.
Melker Carlson.
Somebody will want him. He's always useful, but he may be an invite. He may be a guy that has to find a spot.
One thing we'll probably find out fairly soon is the final resolution of the Zdeno Chara situation, because
I don't know.
Well, he could wait. He could do a Matt Sundin and wait halfway through the year. Anthony Duclair, Corey Perry. Yeah, there's going
to get a job with somebody.
I think he's going back to Dallas
and potential goal scoring not so. Yeah, Dallas would make sense. And who was Anthony Duclair? Sorry.
Let's see, Duclair, Perry, Drake Caggiula.
Yeah, Perry's going to get a job. Drake Caggiula should, because he could penalty kill. He could do a few other things.
Yeah.
He's not, obviously he's a fourth line guy, but you're going to need some fourth line guys. But again, unless they find out that the AHL season is so amended that you're going to let some of those players be on your team until you call them down to the AHL, because they'll be on a taxi squad, right? So, I don't know.
Well, and we'll answer a couple questions, but why don't you start with the Jets question?
Yeah, so Cam was just asking, did the Jets throw that game legitimately? Because I know it appeared like they did, except Greg Williams ran that same play when he was with the Browns, and it was successful, and the Browns got a sack out of it and ended the game. So he figured, why not? That's why I call it the FU defense, because he doesn't care to hear about the criticism why you shouldn't do it. He is just going to do it if he's in charge. So that's that. Now, are they trying to tank? Yeah, I think to some degree the organization is, and that's why Douglas didn't spend a lot of money this year, because he could have bought a lot of guys on a one-year deal and not hurt his cap space, but he didn't do that. So I think he had in mind to tank. The players clearly don't. Gase doesn't, because he could lose his job, although he is the one who fired Greg Williams, so he has more power than that. And so Douglas, I don't even think, can fire Gase at this point. I think only ownership can. And so, there's a potential that Trevor Lawrence may not want to play there. I realize that.
And we know Woody Johnson's coming back from his
yes, he'll be back from the outpost in England and maybe take over for his brother Chris and maybe change things there again. But again, things weren't exactly fantastic under Woody either. They were just slightly better.
No, but he could say, he's not my coach, or you hired him, so I can go in and clean house.
Right.
Adam in the chat asked why Buffalo has not jumped on Craig Anderson. I don't know. Well, okay. I think Buffalo should have jumped on one of these goaltenders, because their goaltending next year is Ullmark and Carter Hutton. And Ullmark will probably be the guy who's the number one and play the most games. But
seems like they're all in on him now, doesn't it?
Yeah, until Pekka Luukkonen.
Right, but I mean, this year they're all in. Yes.
They're all in on him. But see, this is the thing. Their stance right now is we're going for the playoffs, and because otherwise they wouldn't sign Taylor Hall for a year at $8 million. So okay. If that's your stance, is Carter Hutton and Ullmark playoff goaltending? Not by a long shot.
No, but I mean, look, the one thing we could say is Ullmark has some talent.
Yes.
I always felt like he had some talent.
I
appreciated him because he bitched about the ice in Rochester. That made me laugh. We'll see. If he has a career year, then yes, they can make the playoffs with the changes they made. If he is just not, if he's NHL average, and then you're hoping for Hutton to win those other games, that's a big hope, man.
Okay, Thomas and somebody else in the chat were asking about Otto. Is it Kavula or Koivula?
Or Koivula, yeah.
Koivula, thank you.
It's a great question, Thomas. I thought last year he was really close to making it. Now I think he's going to be a taxi squad guy. Something about Trotz doesn't seem to mesh with him. And it's a shame because I thought 2 years ago he was looking pretty good. I don't think he's in the immediate plans, just like Kiefer Bellows now, with everything that's transpired, may not be in the immediate plans. That
was the name I was gonna mention. It's like because Kiefer Bellows, put up some good stats in the American Hockey League, but if he's not, that's the thing with Barry Trotz. If you're not a fully rounded player, if you're not a guy who plays,
probably didn't help him with Lou.
No, and obviously the Ho-Sang situation.
Yeah,
that's self-explanatory. So anyway, all right. Good show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Acello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without